Hello, my name is Brian Mounts. I run turfmechanic.com and this channel, and today I'm coming to you with a guide to summer lawn care for cool season grasses. This video is primarily targeted to people up north who are running Kentucky bluegrass, perennial rye, fine fescue, or tall fescue. The thing is, when you're living up north, we have really long days. Now, our cold season grasses go dormant through the winter, and they can stand up to extremely cold, freezing temperatures, and then they come back every spring. But during the summer, even up north, we can experience a lot of heat and a lot of drought, and some places of the country experience a lot of humidity, and this can be a problem for virtually all of the cold season grasses. Some places experience a lot of rain. The problem with a lot of that rain is various locations around the country get that rain at inopportune times during the day. Let's say, for instance, a late afternoon thunderstorm that hits at like 6 o'clock in the late afternoon or early evening. This can be a challenge for a variety of reasons. No matter where you live, no matter what grass type you have, no matter what environmental challenges you're dealing with throughout the summer, this video should help you at a base level. I'm going to provide you simple tips that's going to apply across the board to all of these northern grass types so that you can have a better chance at getting through the summer with as little damage as possible. Remember, fall is the best time for cold season grasses, and we want to go into the fall not in recovery mode, but we want to go into the fall as strong as possible. Unlike warm season grasses, all cold season grasses go into a state of summer dormancy if the heat gets too high and the watering or the irrigation or the rainfall is too low. This is very common and it's nothing to be alarmed about, but it is something that a lot of people think is the death of their grass. As homeowners see their thermometer go higher and weeks pass without rain and their grass starts going brown, then they start worrying that their grass is actually dying. This is summer dormancy. It's what grass types from the north do to protect themselves during these periods of summer stress. We call this summer stress. Cold season grasses grow really their best between around 60, 70 degrees with a little bit of buffering on either end of that spectrum. So when temperatures get above 80, 85, especially 90, and you're not irrigating the lawn very frequently, then your grass type will want to go dormant. Now, if you cannot reliably get water on your grass and your temperatures are consistently over 90 degrees during the daytime, don't fight it. Just let your lawn go brown. Just let it go dormant. That's right. I'm a lawn care guy here on YouTube. Let your lawn go dormant. Don't fight it. You don't want to be cutting your grass very often. You don't want to be watering it very often. You don't want to be fertilizing it at all if your lawn is going to be going dormant. Now, if your lawn does go dormant, you can't not water it. Just don't water it as often as you would if you were trying to keep it green and growing like you see here in my lawn. My lawn is a mixture of perennial rye and Kentucky bluegrass, and I have had 3 weeks straight of 90 to 100 degree weather. And yet I've kept this green and growing the whole time simply because I've been doing lawn applications throughout the past year and a half that support the root systems of my grass so that it's easier to get through this summer stress. If you can't get through the summer stress, don't worry about it. Don't fight it. Let it go dormant. It will come back in the fall. Now, if, however, you're like me and you can irrigate your lawn reliably, or maybe you're getting reliable rainfall and you believe that you can keep your grass growing and green throughout the summer without going into summer dormancy, then the next thing that we need to talk about is irrigation practices and how we marry the irrigation practices to our environment, to the humidity, to the dryness, or to the rain patterns of our area. For cold season grasses up north, the timing and intensity of your summer rains are going to be incredibly important and are going to really change the way that person A deals with their lawn versus person B. In humid environments, this is also going to be an enormous factor as well. I live in an environment that is not humid. This is not a full desert, but it is quite dry here. If, however, you live in a humid environment, let's say, for instance, like Kansas City, Missouri, or someplace in the northern South, I don't know, maybe like North Carolina, then humidity is going to be an enormous factor because what we want to do for cold season lawns over the course of the summer is do everything we possibly can to keep the soil moist and plenty of water in the grassroot zone, but we don't want the grass blades to be wet for very long, and we certainly don't want the grass blades to be wet later in the day. All northern grass types are going to do their best when they get 1 to 1.5 inches of rain or water into the root zone of the grass every single week. During the spring and the fall, I prefer to do this all at once. One time per day, every 7 to 8 days or so is what I do here on my lawn to get an inch of water into the root zone. If, however, you happen to live in a humid environment that happens to get late afternoon rains and thunderstorms, then this can be a problem simply because you can't rely on a thunderstorm to happen every 7th day in the morning. For places like this, I suggest that you plan your irrigation around the rainstorms. If you're expecting a rainstorm on, say, a Wednesday afternoon, and that rainstorm happens to be small, your grass blades are going to be wet at that time anyway. You might as well do your watering while the grass blades are already wet at the end of the afternoon. If you're going to go into the evening with wet grass blades in a humid environment, that is the perfect breeding ground for fungal problems in a lawn. There's no reason to water the next morning or 2 mornings later if your grass blades are already wet in the evening on, say, that Wednesday. Just water at the same time. Unless you're going to be getting 1 to 2 inches of rain all at once. Then you turn that irrigation schedule off for the week. On the other hand, in a case like mine, where you live in a dry climate and you don't expect to have rain hardly ever during the summer, then it's really important to stick to a very rigid irrigation schedule first thing in the morning. The way that I do it here at my lawn is I turn my irrigation on at about 4 o'clock in the morning before the sun rises. That way the cycle ends right after the sun comes up so that everything can get dried off really quickly before I even get out of bed. Because I live in a dry environment and a not humid environment, then that means that my grass blades dry off much quicker than in humid environments, so I don't really have to worry that much about fungus in my lawn. For me, I don't even put fungicide down at my lawn because my environmental factors make it so easy for that not to be a major issue, a major concern. The goal here, or the thing to keep in mind, no matter where you live, whether it be a humid environment with lots of rain or a dry environment with very little rain, is we want to get adequate moisture into the lawn. So if you're getting afternoon rains and you're humid, then you need to marry your irrigation practices to the rains that you're actually getting. If you're getting rains in the afternoon, add supplemental water at the same time so that you can get to that inch and a half that you need. Kentucky bluegrass is going to be more in lines of needing 1.5 inches of water in the root zone every single week. If you're running like a turf type tall fescue, then you might be closer to 1 inch of water. Perennial rye will be somewhere in between. If, however, you're running a fine fescue, you're likely growing that in a shady environment. You're probably not going to need as much water for that either, simply because it's in the shade, and you're not going to be experiencing the same amount of evaporation in the shade as you are in the full sun. Because rainy locations tend to get rain at various parts of the day, especially in the late afternoon and evening, it's best to do your irrigation during them if the rain is coming in small amounts. For drier environments like myself, it's important to get the irrigation down as early in the day as possible, simply because drier environments will evaporate much faster. So to keep the water down in the root zone of the soil, we need to get the irrigation onto the lawn before the sun and the dryness of the air sucks it out of the soil. Your irrigation system is going to be different than mine. Your irrigation system is going to be different than your neighbor's. You need to check your own irrigation system to find out how much water each zone puts down onto the lawn. This is especially important for cold season grasses in sunny, dry environments. For instance, that zone over there takes 3 hours to put 1 inch of water down. This zone takes 4 hours to put 1 inch of water down. The other zone in my house takes 2 hours to put 1 inch of water down. You need to understand which zone of your irrigation system takes the longest. If it takes too long to go through all of the zones on your irrigation system before, say, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning, then you need to separate your irrigation out by the day. Say, for instance, zone A might be on Mondays, and zone B and C might be on Tuesdays. Because if you do it all at once, then the last zone is getting watered too late in the morning, and you're going to be experiencing too much evaporative loss. Remember, no matter what your environmental factors are, if you can get moisture into the soil every 5 to 6 days, that is better for your lawn than getting it in every 2 to 3 days. Now, we can't control Mother Nature, but if Mother Nature allows for it, we want a longer duration between sessions of water on the grass. We want to keep the leaf blades dry as much as possible, but we want to keep the soil moist as long as possible. If you're into buying product for your lawn, Hydretain is one of the most common products put down on the lawn to retain moisture in the soil. It's what I use in my lawn and what I recommend to my viewers. Now, there are alternatives to Hydretain, which I have linked down below in the description. Hydretain is not for everybody, and you don't need it, but it will help retain moisture in the soil, which can help a lot. It helps me move my watering schedule back to closer to once every week, even in the heat of summer. The worst of all dry heat that we receive here, I can still push it to every 4th day between waterings. Usually throughout the summer, I'm on day 6 for every watering session. If you anticipate maintaining the best lawn possible year after year after year, then a more aggressive strategy, something that I also do, is to core aerate the lawn. Now, I core aerate the lawn in the early spring, basically at the end of winter, but more applicable to this video is at the end of summer, I will be core aerating again as we go into fall. But core aerating isn't the thing that I'm talking about here. It's top dressing it with biochar directly after core aerating lawn. Biochar is a product that is derived from essentially burning wood in a no oxygen environment. It creates a special form of charcoal. If we can core aerate, then that means that we create little channels into the lawn. When we top dress with biochar, we can push the biochar into those channels. The biochar then holds and traps moisture under the soil surface. So when we water, the root systems of our grass can tap into water that will not evaporate away or drain away the way that it would in other environments. Not only does the biochar hold on to water below the soil surface in the root zone, but it will also hold on to nutrients. So summer fertilization in subsequent years can be much less. You don't have to worry about it as much because there's always something in there for the root systems of our grass to tap into. Now, with that being said, if our grass is green and growing, we need to start talking about mowing. Now, mowing is one of those things that a lot of people think of as a chore, something that they don't want to do. Other people love doing it. It's a form of relaxation. For me, it's a little bit of a both. It is a chore. This is my business, but this is also something that I do to keep the lawn healthy for the family, just like doing the laundry. I enjoy it, and it needs to be done. If I'm going to do it, though, I want to do it so that it's healthiest for the grass. This is important. Sharpen your mower blades. Do you have an angle grinder? Do you have a file, like a metal file in the garage? If not, go off to the local discount store in your town and buy the cheapest one possible. Because literally with a socket wrench, you could pull the mower blade off of your mower and sharpen it. The reason for that is a sharper mower blade is going to cut grass cleaner. It's not going to rip, it's not going to shred. And when it cuts clean, then you're going to have less moisture loss with the cut. So when you cut a grass blade, moisture is lost out of it until the grass blade kind of heals itself. I don't know, it's kind of like cutting yourself on the arm. You're going to bleed a little bit until the skin heals. If you can get a clean cut, it will heal itself faster and you'll have less moisture loss. Not only are you going to have less moisture loss, but because you've got a clean cut, your grass blades are going to be able to resist disease a lot better. Grass that is shredded by a dull mower blade is far more likely to experience fungal problems or other kinds of disease issues throughout the rest of the summer and into the fall than grass that is cut clean. It literally only takes about 5 minutes to yank a mower blade off and sharpen it up. It doesn't take that much time. If it takes you 30 minutes to mow your grass, allot 35 to the process. Not that big of a deal. Now, assuming that you have a sharp mower blade and you're not over-fertilizing your lawn, the next best practice for mowing your lawn throughout the middle of the summer is to raise the height up just a little bit. So if you're regularly mowing the grass on, like, say, for instance, the 3rd setting on your lawnmower, move it up to the 4th setting, maybe the 5th setting, and mow it slightly less frequently. If you're mowing the grass every 3rd day in the spring, maybe start mowing it every 5th day in the summer. If you're mowing the grass every 5th day in the spring, mow it every 7th day in the summer. This is going to allow for your grass to be a little bit taller, and when you cut it down, you're not cutting it quite as low. You're going to be cutting it less frequently, so you're not going to be having that evaporative loss with every cut. So every time you sever a grass blade, it's got to heal itself. But you're not going to be cutting it as often, so the grass blades are going to be taller generally, which is going to shade the soil a little bit more, limiting evaporative loss. So if we're watering it less frequently, cutting it less frequently, it's growing a little bit less vigorously, we're able to trap moisture into the soil zone for longer periods of time, your lawn is going to fare better over the course of the entire summer. Now, of course, a lot of the frequency of your mowing is going to be dictated by the speed that your grass is growing. And the speed of your grass's growth is highly dictated by the amount of nourishment you give it and how much fertilizer you're putting on, what kind of fertilizer you're putting on. Now, I have videos about summer fertilization. I'll link to them down in the description below. Suggest you take a look at it. But the summary is, if you don't think your grass is going to stay green and growing through the summer, then don't fertilize. But if you do plan on keeping your grass active throughout the summer, then you should be fertilizing, but with a slow release organic fertilizer. Typically, that fertilizer is going to be high in potassium. Potassium is a nutrient that grass typically uses as like the main driver for its immune system. It allows for disease and stress resistant. It helps the cellular structure of the plant be a little bit more robust and sturdy. I mean, you can trample on grass and let it go a couple extra days between irrigation sessions. It can handle heat a little bit higher than grass that isn't well nourished in potassium. If you're going to be fertilizing in the summer, use something high in potassium. But generally speaking, organics are fantastic ways to go. This summer, I used a product called Lawn Lux. Lawn Lux is an organic product that is an even split between nitrogen and potassium with no phosphorus, but it's all organics. If you're fertilizing for stress resistance, then you probably don't have anything to worry about with excessive growth through the summer. Stay away from fast-release nitrogen fertilizers that are going to push unnecessary growth. They're going to stress your lawn out more, and you don't want to have to deal with that in the middle of the heat and potentially the drought of July and August. Now, regardless of the fact that your lawn is dormant or not dormant through the summer, whether it's hot or cold, no matter how much you're watering or fertilizing the lawn, summer weed pressure is very common up north. It's common everywhere. Weed pressure is something that everyone's going to deal with a little bit differently. Everyone's going to have different weeds in their lawn. Now, early in the spring, maybe mid-spring, lots of people who are on the ball put down a weed pre-emergent. So if you see in my lawn, I don't have a lot of weed pressure, but I do if I get really close. I could show you a handful of weeds throughout the lawn. You can't really see them on camera unless I go out of my way to show them to you. They are there. Weed pre-emergents stop the bulk of weed pressure, but no matter what you put down, I don't care who you are or where you live, you're going to end up having random weeds starting to show up throughout the middle of this summer. And it's hard to deal with them with weed killer products because in the middle of the summer, weed products don't work very well when temperatures get extremely high. They're stressful on the grass. They don't really work all that great on the weeds themselves. They truly are best applied when temperatures are more moderate, somewhere in that 70 to 80 degree range, as opposed to 90 to 100 degrees. Let's talk about what to do about them. Hey, before we finish this video, my favorite chicken and I wanted to ask you to hit that like button. You're in pretty deep. Might as well hit the button. Weed pressure can be pretty intense for those people who keep lawns who did not put down a weed pre-emergent in the spring. Even for people like those, people like me, I did put down a weed pre-emergent in the spring, and I still have to deal with weeds here in the yard. Not as many, and they're not as obvious, but they're still there. One of the reasons that this is hard is because weed killer sprays, products that we spray on the lawn, whether it be natural or chemical in nature, they all work well in moderate temperatures, spring and fall style temperatures. Middle of summer temperatures make it really hard to apply these products to kill the weeds and not damage the grass. Now, if you do have a few days in the middle of the summer where high temperatures only get into the mid-80s, then those are the perfect days, especially on the mornings of those days, to apply weed killer sprays, to spot spray on individual weeds that you find in the yard. However, what I suggest, what I think is best, is to just wait to the fall to deal with them and then put down a pre-emergent the following spring. In the summer, the way that we deal with them is to pull the weeds that are easy to pull the seed heads off of the weeds that are starting to flower, and even more importantly, and more easily done, is to use our lawnmowers with the bagger setting on the highest setting possible, higher than when we cut our grass. Remember, during the summer, we don't really want to cut the grass more often, and we don't want to cut it lower, but weeds do tend to grow a little bit taller and a little bit faster than our grass does. So whenever there's a weed growing in the lawn, usually the seed head pops up above the level of the grass. If you can put your lawnmower bag on, raise the setting up to the highest setting possible, and mow the weeds themselves only every now and then throughout the summer, then you're going to be cutting off the flower heads or the seed heads that are going to go and put seed down and become weeds next year. If you do want to go the spray route, if you've got a very healthy lawn that is not struggling at all, even if the temperature gets up to about 90 degrees, you can usually apply weed killer sprays on a spot treatment basis, and your lawn will probably be just fine, so long as you apply those products in the wee hours of the morning. Again, this is only going to be worthwhile for those people who have really healthy green grass that is not stressed out from the summer heat or drought. Typically, the natural products, which use iron, are going to be a little bit harder on the lawn than the chemical products, which is a little bit ironic if you ask me, but it is the case from my experience. Generally speaking, once you get into mid to late summer, if you've got a lot of weeds, really the best course of action is just pull those seed heads off and hope that next year you have fewer weeds because you eliminated the seed head problem. You don't want these annual weeds to spread their seed and become a problem next year. Now, towards the end of summer, where I live, that's around mid to late August, and in other places, it might be closer to early September, maybe even mid-September if you live down south renting a cool season lawn. These are the places, and this is the time of year that you can really start assessing the lawn damage that you have in your lawn, if any. During the middle of July and the early part of August, if you have brown spots that you think have died off, they might not have died off completely. They might start coming back as temperatures start coming down. By the end of summer, you can truly see the spots that aren't recovering, and this is the perfect time to do an overseeding project. Overseeding or repairing dead patches in the lawn in the early parts of fall or the very end of summer is the easiest time of the year to do it. Don't make the mistake of looking at a brown spot in your lawn and thinking it's died in the month of July or early August. If it's still there by mid-September, that's when you know you need to take some action right away. Where I live, I take that action towards the end of August. You're going to have to watch your temperatures for the best time for you. This usually is when high temperatures start dropping down into the low 80s and upper 70s. The soil temperatures are still at their peak, so everything is going to germinate very easily. And once it germinates, that grass, the baby grass, is going to grow vigorously. Now, ideally, you won't have to overseed it all. Again, fall is the best time for cool season lawns. What we do want, however, is to be exiting summer on the strongest footing possible. We want our lawns to be looking their best, doing their best going into fall, so we can have the strongest, best fall season possible. Now, there are other lawn care tips that are applicable to summer. Grub control, fungicides, things like this are very unique and very specific to certain lawn circumstances. I'll have other videos about those, and I already have some other videos about those topics on this channel. If you hit the like button, you're more likely to be notified of more videos that are relevant to you, so I suggest that you do that.